Oh, you need it up a little higher? Thank you, Charlie. Well, now that I have you all calmed down and quiet. Welcome to the Douglas County District Attorney Primary Forum, hosted today by our local chapter of Women for Kansas and by the League of Women Voters of Lawrence, Douglas County. We each have tables set up in the back with more information about our organizations, and we have sign-up sheets. Women for Kansas will be passing a donation jar to help offset the cost of this event. Any donation is greatly appreciated. I'm Kelly Wall. I'm the leader of our local Women for Kansas, Lawrence Douglas County chapter. Women for Kansas was started in 2014. We're celebrating our 10th year anniversary. It was begun during the Brownback years as a reaction to the extreme policies begun under his administration. And that helps explain why the mission of Women for Kansas is to recruit, motivate, and educate women to actively participate in the process of electing moderates to public office who will advocate for moderate policies. And we also have League of Women Voters here. Charlie Crabtree's back there at the table. Be sure to stop and say hi to him. League of Women Voters of Lawrence, Douglas County is a part of League of Women Voters of Kansas and the United States. The purpose of the League is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. The League is nonpartisan, as is Women for Kansas. In Women for Kansas, we have legislative policies or priorities that include a fair, progressive tax system that adequately funds public services, a court system free from political influence. Can I hear a hooray for that? Equal rights for all citizens, separation of church and state, advocacy of healthcare rights and opportunities, equal access for immigrant families, sensible gun legislation, reproductive rights, preservation of excellence in public schools and higher education, recognition of and support for the arts as vital to our quality of life, and protection of our environment against avoidable degradation and depletion of our natural resources. If these priorities align with your values, I invite you to join us. We have chapters throughout the state as well as a new virtual chapter. Great things never come from staying in your comfort zone. Our democracy needs our participation now as much as ever. So you can sign up to get our weekly newsletter, news you can use. You can contact us at womenforkansas.org and see videos of past events, as well as today's forum, which will be recorded and posted to our YouTube video channel, again, womenforkansas.org. You can also follow us locally on our Facebook page and become a dues-paying member to support our work. And I think we are at 1:30, so today we're meeting on a day celebrating Juneteenth, the day when the last enslaved people, just let that resonate for a minute, enslaved people in the U.S. learned they were free. June 19, 1865, Galveston, Texas. It's all part of our history, isn't it? We all need to know our history. We are also meeting in a special place, Lawrence, Kansas, which was founded in 1854 by anti-slavers who had come to Kansas with the New England Immigrant Aid Company to outvote pro-slavery settlers and so make Kansas a free state as we entered the Union. I learned about this in my kindergarten class at Pinckney Elementary when we took a field trip down to the Watkins Museum, and bloody Kansas and the massacre in Lawrence was imprinted on me as a young child, and I've always been proud to call Lawrence and Kansas my home. So here we are on a special day and in a special place. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's DA Primary Candidate Forum, Ty Edwards. Dr. Edwards is an author, historian, educator, and parent. She serves on the Executive Leadership Committee at Women for Kansas and has been a mentor to me as we've managed our new local chapter. She lives here in Lawrence with her family. Please help me welcome Ty Edwards.
So thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for coming. And again, if you want to share this later, we are posting it online, so you can do that. Okay, so a couple of things about what we're doing. So this is a 2024 Democrat District Attorney primary forum. Okay, so that's what we're preparing for. The primary is on August 6th, and as you may know, early voting in Lawrence starts July 17th. You can learn more about this at the county's website, which is dgcoks.gov, and then you click on voting and elections, so you can determine if you'd like to vote early and the ways that you can do that. As Kelly was pointing out, this is also a weekend in Lawrence that we are celebrating Juneteenth, right? And as Kelly talked about, that is a holiday that celebrates the end of enslavement, right, and the expansion of freedom. But we should also remember that in 2024, we're celebrating and commemorating the 70th anniversary of Brown v. Board, which of course is important in both Kansas and national history. And let's remember, that tells us about how freedom wasn't fully accomplished in that 1865 communication, right, as we all know. Lawrence was also a segregated city. Lawrence is a place of lynching violence. There are other aspects of this history that we also have to remember. And as I'm sure for many of you, the criminal justice system has also long been a place of inequity and racism. And I imagine for many of us, this is one of the reasons we care about this issue today and every day. Okay, so the order of events. The purpose of this forum is to educate voters about the candidates and issues of the district attorney's Democratic primary race. I'm going to briefly introduce the candidates, then we will transition to questions, and we ask the candidates to be specific, especially because you are in the same party and there might be overlap in your views, so the more specific you can be, the better. The final question will give the candidates a chance to tell you a little bit more about themselves. After the forum, we encourage all of you to engage with the candidates. They're all tabling at the back of the room, and you can ask more questions of them directly, and you can also support them with your time and your funds. As we like to say in Women for Kansas, in election season, you either are the candidate or you are supporting the candidate, so keep that in mind. And then, as Kelly said, we will post the video on the Women for Kansas YouTube channel for later viewing. Okay, so let me give you a brief introduction of the candidates. I should say this is not comprehensive. This is a brief introduction to get you started, and then we'll hear a lot more from them, and we'll know more from them, of course, by the end about what they want you to know about them, that we don't get too many questions. Okay, so we will start at the end of the table with Tonda Hill, whose campaign website is www.letdouglasdecide.com. Tonda has worked on both sides of the criminal legal system. She worked for the state of Kansas as a deputy public defender representing indigent defendants charged with felony crimes. She is currently an assistant district attorney in Wyandotte County, handling high-level felonies and specializing in prosecuting sex crimes with a focus on trauma-informed advocacy. She has tried more than 30 jury trials as a prosecutor or defense attorney in criminal law. In her numerous roles, she has supervised staff, recruited and hired staff, and mentored junior-level colleagues. Next, at the middle of the table, and thank you, Dakota, for being willing to sit right where the table legs are located. I'm sorry, I realized that at a too late moment. Dakota Loomis's campaign website is www.loomis4da.com. That's for the number. Dakota has worked as both a prosecutor and a defense attorney. He worked in the Kansas Attorney General's office, the Shawnee County District Attorney's office, and in the administration of Governor Kathleen Sebelius. Dakota has his own law practice, specializing in criminal defense and administrative law. He served for 2 years as the Baldwin City Municipal Judge before becoming the Baldwin City Attorney, handling all municipal prosecution. And then finally, closest to me is Suzanne Valdez, whose website is SuzanneValdez.com. Suzanne served as an attorney at Kansas Legal Services, advocating for clients in a variety of contexts, including divorce, protection from abuse, landlord-tenant disputes. Spent many years as a faculty member at the University of Kansas School of Law. Also represented clients in civil litigation disputes. Served for several years as special prosecutor in Wyandotte County, handling high-level felony prosecutions. For several months, she was the temporary district judge pro tem of Douglas County, presiding over juvenile offender and post-divorce motions dockets. As you probably know, in 2020, Valdez was elected Douglas County District Attorney and has served in that capacity for the last 4 years. Those are our candidates. All right, so let's get to our first question, which is a nice, I think, transition between what I just rattled on about, which you maybe glazed over while I was saying it. So, the Democrat district attorney candidates have followed different pathways in their legal careers. So what background and expertise do you think are essential for someone serving as the Douglas County District Attorney? And then there's a second part to this. And why do you think that? Okay, so what background and expertise are important in serving in this role, and why do you think that? So Suzanne, why don't we start with you?
Thank you all for being here today. As your current district attorney, I can tell you that being a DA requires having the administrative perspective, knowing how to work with budgets, knowing how to allocate resources, knowing how to manage courtrooms, knowing how to come up with policies and procedures that need to be enforced. It also requires someone who's a practicing attorney who can get into the courtroom and practice and handle high-level cases. It's also someone who's a policymaker. The prior administration didn't have a lot of written policies. Those have come to fruition. And so that work, you have to have the policies. You got to create the policies that are in line with what I believe is a just and fair and just community. And we need to enforce those types of policies. It's not an easy job. It's a very difficult job. Every day you're making decisions about people's lives. You're trying to ensure the public safety in our community. It's working with law enforcement agencies. We have 7 of them, just off the top of my head, that we work with daily. Cases are coming through. We're working with law enforcement. Just this week, we had 2 homicides. And I know Mr. Loomis and I tried a high-level child sexual assault case. And so we are working a lot, making a lot of decisions that affect people's lives. It's a position that is not one for the faint of heart. It is one that understands budgets, understands policies, understands how to work with people, understands how to go out and talk to the community, understand what the community needs, and make those decisions to ensure public safety. It's one that I've taken very seriously for 3 years now. This is my 4th year. If you go to the DA website, we operate in transparency. We are accountable. You will see all 3 of our annual reports. Our latest report in 2023 was just published, but it puts out all the information that we are doing in our office. From the charging decision, you will see we charge over 3,000 cases, including felonies and misdemeanors. We also have a robust alternatives to incarceration program, so it's understanding that putting people in prison isn't always the right thing to do. We need to make sure that they are rehabilitated, and we invest in them in our community and have them back with their families. But let me tell you something very, very important. We all voted, this community voted not to expand our jail, and we haven't done that. And what we've done instead is use the jail to hold and put violent offenders and hold violent offenders while they're being tried. And there are violent people out there that need to be sent to prison. Yes. But I will tell you that the jail doesn't have people on our cases that are stealing bicycles and smoking weed. The people that are in the jail, and I see the sheriff here, are very violent offenders, and the makeup of the jail is very, very different. But we have to make sure that our community is safe, and that is why we have to use that particular avenue. Every Monday morning, I see the jail log. I know every single person who's involved who's in the jail and what charges they're there for, and they are violent offenders being held to be accountable in our system. I take all of this very, very, very seriously. It's something that I hold dear and true to my heart, because victim-centered approach to prosecution is something that I am very, very focused on. We work with victims. We work daily with victims, and when victims come to us, it's not on their best day, folks. We do everything we can to get justice for them. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but we trust the system to work, and it's not a perfect system. And as was mentioned earlier, I will tell you the criminal justice system is used historically it's racist, it's misogynist, and in many ways we need to fix that. And they've required prosecutors to do that. I've been making change. I've been making change since 2020, and I want to continue to do it, so please vote for me.
All right, Dakota?
Thank you, Ty. When I look at the question about what background and expertise someone needs to be Douglas County District Attorney, the first thing that I think of is that person needs to have relationships across the community. It's a person who needs to be able to go into anyone's home, go into any office, go into any nonprofit, and be able to walk in that door and listen to them, have them listen to the district attorney, and trust that relationship will be able to carry over into the courtroom. The background and expertise you need is to be able to go to that courtroom and try those cases. The district attorney has to know what cases to bring, what cases not to bring, and you have to be able to communicate that to the community and the folks who are impacted by the cases on a daily basis. So when I look at this question about background and expertise, the first thing I think about is what relationships does the person in that office have with the shareholders in this community, with Bert Nash, with DECA, with Artists Helping the Homeless, with law enforcement. What's their experience in this Douglas County Courthouse? Have they built up trust? Have they built up relationships with the folks they work with day in and day out, so that when they commit to something as a district attorney, the people they're talking to can trust that they will do what they will say. They will keep to their word, and that word means that they will be there for them if they should be a victim of crime, or will be there for them should their family be victimized by someone in this community. The reason why it's so important to me is that I don't believe this system works without trust. The system does not work if the people in Lawrence, the people in Baldwin City, the people in Eudora, the people in Perry, the people throughout Douglas County do not trust that the Douglas County District Attorney's Office is working for them and will listen to them. If you have a District Attorney's Office that can't listen, that won't listen, there's no way to work with the community to make it safer. There's no way to make progress and change within the shareholders that we work with every single day. So again, I look at this question, background and expertise. You certainly have to have a strong background in the courtroom. You have to have expertise to know what cases are viable cases, what cases aren't. But at the end of the day, this comes back down to me trust. And who you can trust to be in that office, who you can trust to listen to you, to take your concerns into account, and to reflect those back in how that office is run, how that office is managed. If I would be the Douglas County District Attorney, the first thing I can tell you is that listening would be the first skill in that office. It's not about, you can't lead unless you know where people want to go. And the only way to learn that here, the expertise, the background you need, is the ability to listen to other folks, take in their viewpoints, and then meld those together to make our community whole while moving forward. It's repairing relationships with our community partners to make sure that we're all on the same page and moving forward in concert. So when I look at this question again, why is it important that you trust the district attorney's office? If you don't trust the system, if you don't trust that you'll be able to receive justice, that people will be held accountable for crimes, they will receive services that they need to have alternatives to incarcerations and alternatives to criminal prosecutions, then our community as a whole is less safe. Our community doesn't trust that they will receive a fair shake in the courthouse. They don't believe they'll be able to come to police, sheriff's office, deputies, and report those crimes. So again, when I look at this question, my first answer on this is, what expertise do you need? The ability to listen and the ability to trust that you can work with other folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a part of the Lawrence NAACP Political Action Committee, and I understand the difficulty it takes to reach the forum. So thank you, Dr. Edwards, for providing this to the community. And when I think about the background and expertise, it's important to kind of make sure we understand where individuals come from. My name is Tonda Hill. I know you might have heard Tonda, but I was named after my father, Tony, a Tone to help you remember. But if you say Tonda or Tonda, as long as you're circling my name on August 6th, that's fine. So I would like to talk about the fact that my entire career has been about public service. And you want a district attorney that has public service as their guide, because they will always look to the betterment of their community. So I have a bachelor's and master's degree in education from KU, and I also have a law degree from KU as well. I have lived in many places my entire life, but it's given me quite a bit of perspectives. So I was born in Nuremberg, Germany. I was raised in Leavenworth, Kansas, and took my first teaching position where I taught at an alternative high school at-risk students. And I came to Lawrence. My husband and I moved here 13 years ago, purchased a home. I am a homeowner after I received my employment at KU Law, where I did recruiting. So I recruited individuals to come to the law school to diversify the student body. After I did that, I was a public defender. So I wasn't a solo practitioner that took court-appointed cases. I worked for the state of Kansas for the Board of Vigilant Defense Services. And as you heard from Dr. Edwards, I was able to be the deputy public defender, where I had a high caseload that were about felonies, but I also had to manage an office and mentor individuals. After I left the public defense, I'm currently in Kansas City, where I work as an assistant district attorney. And I'm so grateful that the head DA allowed me to waive the residency requirements so that I could live here and commute to my job. And I'm so familiar about commuting because when I had my bachelor's, my master's, and my law degree, I commuted from Leavenworth to Lawrence every day, juggling working at community living opportunities. That's a place here in Lawrence. It's also called CLO, where you work with individuals with mental and cognitive disabilities. Why am I telling you about these experiences? Because they matter with the perspective that this individual will have. The person that's going to be the district attorney, they make charging decisions. They make bail decisions. What cases to try, what cases not to try. You have an individual that has had lots of experience, not only in the criminal law field, but also in professional field. And I've always targeted in places and spaces for the marginalized and individuals that need the most amount of help. We talked about having 30 trials, but I've had over 40 trials. And in fact, over Memorial Day weekend, I just tried a case that involved sex crimes for a child, and I convicted the individual and is looking at serving 3 consecutive life sentences. In addition to my experience of having to have trial cases, I have worked in this community. So I am a member of the League of Women Voters, Justice Matters, the NAACP, and I attend the local church here. When I decided to run, I have been active in getting to know the community. I have been canvassing, and I also have met with judges to decide what to happen. Thank you.
Is everyone able to hear okay? Yeah, okay, just want to check that. Okay, all right, so moving on. So Douglas County voters will elect one person as district attorney who then builds a team and manages an office of many people who will carry out the wide-ranging aspects of a DA's responsibilities. So this is another two-part. You can tell the professors are writing the question. Okay, so how will you build and retain competent staff with sufficient expertise to successfully carry out the office's responsibilities? Okay, so how will you build and retain that staff? And how will that office's operation reflect and represent you? Okay, so build it, and then how will it represent you? Dakota, let's start with you.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Like all good students ask. How will you build and retain competent staff with sufficient expertise to successfully carry out the office's responsibilities? And how will that office's operation reflect and represent you?
So building and retaining a competent staff requires connections with prosecutors, defense attorneys across the state, relationships to recruit folks who may be able to fill roles that are needed here in Douglas County. It also means that the district attorney is going to have to be someone who takes the staff that's in place right now and provides them with the opportunities they need to develop professionally internally, to expand their expertise, to expand their knowledge base. I think at the core of this, though, what I see is the district attorney here needs to be somebody who their staff can rely upon to set priorities, to set standards, and that the staff can then follow those priorities and standards. I'll give you an example. One of my core beliefs, and one of the reasons why I'm running for district attorney, is because I believe deeply that this system works best when everyone's treated with dignity and respect. As a district attorney for Douglas County, as a leader, you need to be someone who can treat your staff with dignity and respect. Is that better, Laura? All right, there we go.
They do have mics and it wasn't on.
So recruiting staff means we have to be able to have people trust that when they come to your office, they'll be able to do the job that they've been hired to do, that they'll have the resources they'll need to do that job. Additionally, we need to be able to know and trust that their leadership will follow through with what they've committed to the folks who they've hired and they've brought into the office. I've worked with prosecutors across Kansas for the last 20 almost years. I worked in the Shawnee County Attorney's Office starting in 2009. I've worked across the state as a defense attorney. I have a large network of folks who I can call on should I either for advice and for come work in the Douglas County Attorney's Office. But again, a lot of this is obtaining, recruiting, and competent attorneys is just step one. The real problem is keeping them here, making sure that once you've identified the right folks, they come to work in your office, that they want to stick around and stay in Douglas County, continue to work here and protect our community. What we see over and over again is a difficult field right now to retain and recruit prosecutors. And it makes it doubly hard when you have caseloads that are unmanageable, resources that don't meet the needs of the office. So starting under administration's mind, if you're talking about how to represent or reflect me, first and foremost, I think the people who will be working there will be treating everyone there with dignity and respect. That includes other staff internally, but it also means defense attorneys, defendants, people who are involved in the criminal justice system, judges, all the media, anyone ever who comes into contact with that system. So from day one, the district attorney's office, the district attorney needs to set the tone and set the expectations of what people in that office will and will not do. And the first and foremost that expectation that I have for anyone who works for me, the that they have to treat everyone with dignity and respect. There's study after study that shows that people who come into the criminal justice system are treated respectfully, are treated with dignity, leave that system believing that they've been treated fairly, believe that the outcome of their case, regardless if it was positive or negative, that outcome was just. So having a district attorney's office that focuses on respecting the process, respecting the people in it, and respecting the time and money of the taxpayers that are funding that office would be the baseline for me in terms of recruiting and retaining folks. They'd have to share that same value that I would bring to the office. I think in terms of representing me, I want a staff that doesn't represent me. I like a staff that represents this community, a staff that represents the people who come through the doors on a day-to-day basis and have to work with our office. So recruiting and retaining folks that represent me, other than treating people fairly with dignity and respect, they will have to represent this community and reflect this community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
In order for me, if I came in to do to build an office, I believe first you have to do an assessment of what is there, and then fill in whatever it is that needs to be filled in. And so, because I have worked as a criminal defense attorney, I've worked as a prosecutor, I have the ability to bring in individuals that are highly competent and trained. And these individuals are actually prosecuting in places that have higher crime rates than Lawrence. And so I think it's important that you have first an assessment of what is there to see if those individuals share your same values. With the individuals, how will they represent me? I believe you have to mentor. And Dr. Edwards, I'm a teacher too, so I like to show my work. I'm going to invite you to go to letsdecide.com. You'll hear from someone named Josh Zars. This is an individual that I mentored when I was a deputy defender. And this individual will himself tell you the things that I did to allow him to develop as an attorney while I was maintaining a high caseload, because I think that that is also important. Management is also mentorship. They must go hand in hand. And I've done that as a deputy public defender. I also I used to run a sexual assault victims unit. During that time, I had to manage officers, forensic examiners, all different types of staff, detectives. I had to coordinate with them, do best practices of training. That was a way of mentorship with them, having the officers come in, looking at cases before we took them to trial, talking about what would work, using best practices. And I believe it's also important to give them training. During the May 19th, I attended the 19th annual Crimes Against Women conference. And that was another example of training that I believe all of the staff and myself should have, so that they're knowing how to be proficient in their duties as a assistant district attorney. And the representation I would believe is important is my motto, which is integrity in action. Any interaction that you have with the public, whether it's defense attorneys, defendants, have to be based in integrity. And so if I'm the district attorney, I believe it's important to provide competent representation, and that only happens if you understand the system. If you don't have vast trial experience, then you can't monitor or manage whether or not someone's doing that appropriately. I have that, having done 40 trials, and I'll continue to do that with whatever staff, either that are here that share my mission, or the staff that comes along. Thank
All right,
you.
thanks, Tonda.
Yes, so, my culture at the DA's office is it's an egalitarian culture. Everyone in that office has a job to do. So we've got 16 attorneys, including myself. We've got trial assistants, we've got investigators, and we've got 4 victim witness coordinators. I just want to point out that our victim witness coordinators, we now have 4. I was able to take a line after we had used our got our electronic case management system, which thankfully the county commission supported. It really made the streamlined the procedures of our office, and I was able to use a line to get another victim witness coordinator. We are, for the size of the office that we have 4 of them. They do a fantastic job in community and working with victims of crime and making sure that they're taken well care of. They're the heart of our team. So we also have 4 legal interns, and I will tell you that totally the whole office is probably about 45 people every day doing something. It's very egalitarian. Lawyers do the work, trial assistants are doing their work, victim witness coordinators are doing the work, we're moving the cases through. No one is more important than anyone else in that office. It is a very caring office. It's very robust in terms of hearing opinions from people, getting people to work together to ensure that we are moving our cases like they should be. When you think about a traditional law firm, and I know there's some lawyers in this room, you think about the lawyers are here, the support staff are here. That's not how it works. Even though we're probably the second biggest law firm here in Douglas County, when you think about it, it is very egalitarian. We have babies, we have puppies. We do what we can, and this gets to Mr. Loomis's point about retention and recruitment. He is absolutely right. Nationally, no one wants to be a prosecutor for lots of reasons. 1, it is stressful. 2, the pay is terrible. And so what we have, and what I have tried to do, is try to get those individuals who really believe in the mission of what we're doing, and that is change. It's changing the criminal justice system to use the system for violent offenders and for everything else to have some accountability, but outside of the criminal justice system. And it's working. And so what I want to say to you is that I've had a lot of prosecutors who I support them, I mentor them, I make sure they have training. We have units, we have lots of opportunity for our prosecutors to gain that experience that they need to be ready to be in the courtroom. And they're ready. They're competent and they're great attorneys, and I'm very proud of them. And when another opportunity comes up for them, guess who is pushing them out the door? It's me. I want them to get out there and to grow as an individual and do other work. So I'm very proud of the team that we have put together. It does require, and here's retention issue. The retention issue is after COVID, no one buys into this 8 to 5 paradigm anymore. Most people work from home. It's hard to work from home when you're a prosecutor. You got to be in court every day. So I'm doing what I can to try with our systems in place to give people the ability to work from home if they can. Have them in the courtroom. Make sure there's work-life balance. What we do is very, very stressful, and the pay isn't a lot. And I will tell you that here in Douglas County, I have people from Johnson County, they pay a lot more than we do. Wyandotte County, I know for sure, Mr. Mark Dupree, who's a darn good friend of mine, they're down 9 or 10 attorneys. And that's why he had to lessen the residency requirement, because he has to make sure he has people staffing his cases. It's a very difficult job, and one, when you think about recruitment and retention, that you do everything you possibly can to feel like that person is part of a team. We are part of a team. I call it my DA team, because everybody has an input, everyone has a voice, everyone does the work that they're asked to do, they do it well, and I am grateful for their work every single day. I am grateful for the service that they provide this community. Thank you.
All right, okay. So it'll be another two-parter. Yeah, okay. So a district attorney's office deals with many complex issues that have significant consequences for individuals and the community. One aspect of this complexity, which some of you have referenced, is known as prosecutorial discretion. The American Bar Association defines prosecutorial discretion as, quote, the power of government prosecutors to choose whether or not to bring criminal charges and what charges to bring in cases where the evidence would justify charges. So our question for you, what values and priorities will govern your prosecutorial decision-making process as district attorney, and why should voters trust you with this discretionary power? All right, so what values and priorities will govern your decision-making, and why should voters trust you with that power? So Tonda, let's start with you.
Thank you. So the values and priorities that are important to me is to make sure that I am prosecuting violent offenses, and that my discretion in everything I do is based on the law law and the evidence. If there is a case that is not supported by evidence, even if it is something that's controversial, it is important for me to dismiss those charges. I believe it is important to also do wraparound services, to not penalize mental health, addiction, poverty. When I worked as an alternative, at an alternative school, I saw directly the school-to-prison pipeline. I saw how sometimes individuals were caught up in the criminal legal system due to truancy, and it made it difficult for them to proceed because of all the encumbersome that they had to do. So I always believe that pragmatism is important to looking at the cases on an individual basis so that you're actually doing things that are meaningful and not harmful, and allowing the individuals to have an opportunity to come back into the system. But violent offenses is something that I don't believe that I do not tolerate. I have specialized in doing sexual assault crimes, and so those are some of the most violent types of things that occur. I would use my prosecutorial discretion to make sure that I am being measured in my approach and pragmatic. I believe that it is very important that individuals know that there are natural consequences for their behavior, but that consequence has to be measured in your approach. I have an example where I had an individual that had a crime in Wyandotte County and also a crime in Douglas County. And this individual was in rehab. And instead of having this individual arrested and taken out of the rehab facility, I allowed the individual to be served on the warrant, stay in the treatment facility, work with the attorney, which was Mr. Loomis, to make sure that that individual received treatment, have that individual's probation deferred from Wyandotte County to Douglas County so that she didn't have a whole bunch of burdens to be able to be successful for probation. That's an example of using pragmatism, working with the judge so that the judge would allow me to serve this individual a warrant, and we did the case through Zoom, so she never had to leave treatment. I hope that this individual is using that opportunity to better her life and to better Douglas County, and that's what I want to do as your district attorney.
You talk about prosecutorial discretion, and that's something that we, as prosecutors, take seriously. It's part of our obligation in our role. Coupled with that is prosecutorial independence. And so, there's three branches of government: judicial, executive, legislative branch. I am the top official executive branch of the executive branch here in this county, and I take that very serious. So discretion and independence, those two things are very, very tied together. I believe that my office, the people that are working for me, to work with our law enforcement agencies, to work with our community partners, and I will say this, shout out to Douglas County. I mean, we are the leader, one of the leaders in this country for doing alternatives, for looking at how we can make the criminal justice system better. And I am proud that I get to talk to people from all over the country, sharing our models, sharing what we're doing, talking to them about all the things I wanted to accomplish in 2020 and that I've done for the last 3 years, working hard. And yes, there's been distractions. There's been people that don't like what I'm doing. It can be caged in, I'm not listening. Oh, I have listened. And I listen all the time, and I listen to the people of Douglas County in 2020, and I'm doing the work, and I'm going to continue to do the work. And as far as alternatives to incarceration go, we are this close from getting $1 million earmark from Senator Moran's office that we can start our veteran treatment work. How many of you are veterans in this room? If you are, shout out. Thank you. We are going to try to get a veteran treatment work, and we're going to try to get that started. Infrastructure is already in place. In terms of fentanyl prosecution, people are dying every day from this deadly drug. That is something that we work with our law enforcement agencies to prosecute distributors of this deadly poison. Those who are addicted, we want to put in drug court, where Mr. Loomis does a great job as a defense attorney working for the drug court. Okay? We need you there. We need you to be there. Also, we are another priority Mr. Loomis knows because he and I prosecuted one this last week. Okay? It's horrific, it's horrendous, and we've got to keep our children safe. The other thing that you all need to think about is reproductive justice. We have a legislature that is trying to criminalize reproductive rights. And I am one of a handful of people in this country who are standing up and saying, prosecutorial discretion. We are not prosecuting any law that relates to coercion or to anything that deals with or addresses or goes after reproductive rights. And this just isn't a women's issue. This is a family issue. This is a male issue. It's basic civil rights. And I will wrap up by this particular question by saying, this country has had a tradition of using the criminal justice system to go after civil rights, women's rights, all the rights that we should have as a matter of constitutional guarantee. All of us in this room, every single one of us, including Mr. Speeds, who puts out his First Amendment language out there, okay? But I prosecute those cases that are violent. I make sure that constitutional rights are protected and that victims' rights are protected. People may not like the outcome, and it makes me sad sometimes that we don't get the outcomes we need, but you know what? Every single day I'm out there fighting for victims, and so is my team. And so those are going to continue to be my priorities. I'm going to take what I've done in 2020, and I'm going to keep doing it in 2024, and it's going to get better, and it's going to get bigger, and we're going to keep the jail not growing, we're going to keep it where it needs to be, and we're going to return people to their families who need to be here. Thank you.
Dakota?
Thank you. So the values that I bring to this office, that I bring to this office as district attorney, have been shaped over the last 5 years working in the drug court. It was shaped when I was in Shawnee County. I was a charging attorney for all domestic violence cases in Shawnee County. Spent 3 years, every single day, having cases come across my desk and making decisions about what cases to charge and what cases to not charge. And the vast majority of the cases that came across my desk, there was an identifiable victim, there was someone who needed services, who needed support. Oftentimes there were multiple people who needed services and needed support. The hardest decision to make is when you have to tell someone you're not going to prosecute their case. You have to tell them that we believe you, we believe this happened to you, but based upon the evidence I have before me, what I can show to a jury, I can't in good conscience use our resources to prosecute this case. That is the job that many prosecutors have to do day in, day out, and I think it's the hardest thing that you have to do as a prosecutor, is look someone in the eye and tell them why you can't take their case on. When you do decide to take cases on, what should guide you, what would guide me would be getting the greatest public safety return for that case. There are things that we are currently not prosecuting in Douglas County. Misdemeanor marijuana possession. There's no need to prosecute misdemeanor marijuana possession given the public safety return on that. What we need to be focusing on is making sure all of our resources are allocated to specific types of crimes or specific individuals. You can talk with law enforcement, the sheriffs here, they can tell you the 5, 10 people that they've identified who caused a vast majority of crime in certain areas. They can tell you who's bringing fentanyl into our community. They can tell you who needs to be prosecuted. If you treat every single case that comes across your desk the same way, that means you're using resources on cases where alternatives to the criminal justice system would be better suited for that case. Drug court, non-prosecution and getting them services, case management, behavioral health court to get people mental health services. So the values and priorities that I bring to the office was focus on making sure that we're using taxpayer resources in the most efficient way, in the most cost-effective way, and targeting the most dangerous crimes, the crimes committed by the people who seem to recommit crimes time and time again. You ask, why would you trust me? This is what I've been doing for the last 10 years, is trying to keep people out of the system or protect them when they came into the system. That's why I joined the drug court team to try and help people get out of the system before they were convicted of felonies. Ms. Hill mentioned a client that we shared in common. Ms. Hill was one of 6 counties that I worked on to get that client into drug court. Osage, Shawnee, Douglas, Johnson, Wyandotte, and Jefferson. That person today graduated from drug court. She's been maybe the most successful participant in drug court. I would love for you to all meet her and hear her story, because it's the whole purpose of running for the attorney's office to have more stories like that, to have more people who come through this program, come through the court system, and come out the other side better. To do that, though, you have to be focused and focus your resources on the right cases, and focus the types of resources and types of treatments to handle that to the right person. Not everyone needs to be prosecuted. Not everyone needs alternative incarceration as well. We have dangerous people in this community who need to be prosecuted and need to spend time in prison. That being said, that is a case-by-case decision that's going to be guided by my beliefs. The belief that I have to be able to prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt. That you have to have victims and families, survivors of sexual assault, who understand at the beginning of that process what that process looks like, what it will do to them to go through that process, to have their consent, and work with them throughout that process.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, this is our last question. We're gonna give them a little bit more time to answer it so that they can get to anything that they maybe didn't get to on some of the others. So this forum has brought together Democrats, as you know, running for Douglas County District Attorney. As you probably also know, registered Democrats will vote for one of these candidates on the primary held on August 6th. And this is a difference from 2020, so if you haven't been keeping up with your news, the winner will face a Republican district attorney challenger in the general election in November. So you may remember in 2020, there were only Democratic candidates running. That's not the case this time. So I'm going to start with Suzanne, and then we'll go to the other two. So let me read all these questions here. So for Suzanne, why should voters choose to retain you as district attorney? And then for Tonda and Dakota, why should voters choose someone new, and why should that be you? Okay, so Suzanne.
Well, since I'm and the DA, I'm gonna wait to hear what they have to say, because they have their positions, and I would prefer to be around.
I'd rather you go first. Go first, yeah.
All right, here we go. So, I've kind of hinted at this already. You know, in 2020, we were in the middle of COVID. It was a very wonky time. I ran for district attorney in 2020 because this community needed a change. I was a law professor. I was a special prosecutor in Wyandotte County, working for Martin Creek, handling a lot of different cases. There were things that were not getting done around here, and I think it was a time for change. When you get too sort of entrenched, you just need a new person at the wheel. And so I got that position because I believed in a lot of things. One, as a law professor, I saw a lot of women coming to me who were victims of sexual assault. Two, my brother died of a fentanyl overdose. And I knew fentanyl was coming across into this country, and I wanted to do something about it. And three, I am a public servant, and I care about the safety of this community. I care about everyone in this room. I want to make sure our kids are safe. All those things culminated in me running, and I won. And the platform that I won on was alternatives to incarceration, people who have addiction, who have mental health issues, who are doing minor petty things, through our robust diversion program, which, by the way, we're one of the only DA's office, certainly a few DA's offices that don't charge any application fee for a diversion. Municipal courts charge money for a diversion application. We have very low barriers, okay? The criminal justice system that needs to be used for violent crime, as Mr. Loomis indicated. And that's what we're using the criminal justice system for. The other thing I ran on is victim advocacy, making sure we had a victim-centered approach to a system that is defendant-focused. That's what the Constitution requires. And Mr. Loomis knows this. He defended an individual charged with multiple counts of child sexual abuse. And it worked. We had to say that we worked very well together, we did. Okay? But that's what the system is for. And lastly, you know, we've got to make sure that we change the system so it works for Douglas County. And it's working. It's not always perfect. I know some people don't like change. A lot of people don't like change. But you know what? The only way you're going to make change is if you stand up for those things that you were elected to do. And I will tell you again, these are all my reports. Go to the Douglas County website. You'll see all of our annual reports. I have done all the things, my team has done all the things, and has continued to do all the things that I promised to do. So that is why I ask for your vote. And I will tell you that this position isn't for the faint of heart. It just isn't. We make tough decisions every day. I make people angry every day. I have to tell people no every day. I have to say this is the way it's going to be. All right? You have to take a position. You have to have policies. You have to stand by those policies to keep our community safe. And that is what we're doing. The other thing I want to point out is that this is bigger. So the criminal justice system is the criminal justice system. That is what my lane is. My lane is prosecuting. My lane is chief of the executive branch. I don't chum around with people that, I want independence. I want you all to know that when I go in there, I'm not being influenced by anyone else, by my friends, by the establishment, none of that. I'm working for you.
So let's focus on why you should choose me. As I mentioned earlier, my top priority would be to bring respect and dignity back to the district attorney's office here in Douglas County, to restore trust in the office, to restore trust that decisions are being made based upon the right reasons, based upon the cases before them, the facts of those cases. But I also want to highlight, I think, what may be the most important thing for me is that I spent my entire life building relationships in this community. Spent my entire life working with prosecutors, working with courts, working with community corrections, Burt, Nash, DECA, every single service provider here in the community, and creating trust between me and those organizations. I've spent my time working for my clients, who are often charged with mundane to horrible things. Each and every one of them gets the same services from me. It's treated the same way with dignity and respect. To choose me, the reason why I'm running is to make sure that everyone who comes into contact with the Douglas County District Court, comes in contact with the Douglas County District Attorney's Office, trust that they are being treated in a fair and equitable manner. You can go into the courthouse today, ask court reporters, ask community corrections officers, ask anyone their opinion of me. I welcome you to go into this community and talk with everyone in that courthouse about what they see day in, day out from me. I think you'll get the same answer over and over again. Someone who works for their client, someone who protects their client, and someone who is fair and honest with their opponents, fair and honest with the court, someone who brings the same dignity and respect to each person they deal with, regardless of situation, regardless of background. I want to make sure our community is safe. I want to make sure that our office of district attorney focuses on the most important cases and does not spend time and resources on cases that distract from the very types of cases that the DA Valdez and I worked on this week. Crimes against children, crimes against the elderly, crimes against women. Those are the folks who day in, day out are victimized in our system and who we need to be spending our time and resources on. That also means that there are a lot of people who come into contact with the criminal justice system who don't need that same level of prosecution, who need services, who need help. There's families who come into contact with their system who need help. If I was district attorney, I believe I can take the programs in place now, expand those programs, enhance them, start pre-charging diversion programs, work with law enforcement to make sure that their voices are heard, that people, before they even come into the system, before they're put into jail, before they lose their home, before they lose their animals at their home, before they lose their job, they are given a chance to correct whatever they may have done before the criminal justice system brings them into that system and spits them out. Because unfortunately, far too often, the people in this community who come into the system leave worse for wear. That's across the board. People who are accused of crimes, the people who are victimized by crimes, survivors of sexual assaults, the people come in and leave worse off. My hope would be that we could create a Douglas County District Attorney's Office that focuses on making sure that while the community is protected, the folks who come into contact with the system leave the system, trusting that it works for them, trusting that the people involved in that system respected them, treated them with dignity, and at the end of that process, they were in a better place than when they came in. So that's the reason why I'm asking for your vote on August 6th, and that's the reason why I'm running for Douglas County District Attorney.
I'm going to stand because I think that it'll help me to amplify my voice. The fact that I'm even standing on this stage is unique. My grandmother has an 8th grade education. She dropped out of school because she had her first child at 14 due to statutory rape. An adult made decisions for my grandmother that impacted not only my grandmother's life, but my mother's and other individuals. My mother and my aunt, they are a success story of the foster care system. And because of that, they taught me the importance of hard work and perseverance. These are just a little bit of skills that you will need as a district attorney that I possess. And even to this day, when I filed in January, they have been teaching me perseverance and working hard for what I believe in, which is Douglas County. You've probably seen them canvassing on doors, knocking on doors with me, and my father, who's in a wheelchair, he even drives the car because he will not allow his disability to limit what he believes he can do. As your next district attorney, I will prioritize making sure the vast amount of unfiled cases that are related to sexual assaults and other crimes have charging decisions. I've spoken with law enforcement so that I can develop an on-call system so that they can call me at all times if they have any questions regarding charging decisions, affidavits, probable cause, getting search warrant. And they were very receptive when I talked to them about that. They were receptive about the training that I want to provide. I've also spoken with the courts. I've done my research. Even though I haven't worked in this particular instance, I'm not a part of the system that needs to be changed. I don't have an allegiance to the prosecution. I don't have an allegiance to the defense. My allegiance will always be to Douglas County and making sure that I enforce the laws to keep the community safe. I'm asking you to vote on August 6th for the most qualified candidate. Thank you so much.
I want to thank all of the candidates for joining us. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Again, you can learn more about Women for Kansas at our website, womenforkansas.org, and most importantly, you must vote. All right, so August 6th is the election.
Don't go away. We're going to see people leave. And the sheriff, when he got here, he damn near run Justin over.
A final comment, we have tables in the back of the room where you can speak with Suzanne, Dakota, and Tonda. And they also are available at the South Park, I believe. All of you have tables down there at South Park, the rest of Laura. It's a busy day. It's a busy day. There will be another Saturday, June 29th, 1:30. This will be in Watkins Museum, hosted by the Brothers Noah and NAACP and North Dakota College. Thank you all for coming. Our donation jar, if you can bring that to the front, please. Make sure the donation jar is all the way through the room. Bring that forward. Thank you.
So, I said that we try to figure out how to incorporate, the newspapers announced that the forum is going to be at Watkins.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be too, but apparently not. There he is.
How you doing?
Have a good weekend, man.
Oh, there it is. Going to the fundraiser right now, so. Yes.
All right, guys. I'm going to shut down the live stream, but give you a little look here. And that's what we just came out of. And the doc was in there. So, were you upset that I prevented your next lawsuit? I kind of cock-blocked your next lawsuit. Well, when they started going after you in there, I came out here and told the guy, I said, no, you can't do that. You got to shut him down. You can't shut him down without making them stop clapping too.
And they started yelling out too. Like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, they're showing their obvious
Yeah,
hatred, discrimination.
yeah,
Rules for them, rules for us, but not for them.
yeah. No, and it's pretty clear to see. And what I thought was interesting was, I think just damn near every law enforcement person hierarchy was in there today.
Really?
You know, Jay was there. I didn't see Lockhart, but I saw Jay. I saw commissioners. I saw Karen Willie was in there. All the DA candidates and the DA herself. I turned around and told Seiden, I said, you better do something. He literally told me it's his day off.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
He's
and
got an
then,
excuse for everything, doesn't he?
and then when she made that quip about even your rights matter in that little part, I turned around and looked at him and he winked at me
He
like
winked at me across the room.
Yeah,
Too. I was
yeah.
looking at him, he's like, yeah.
yeah. There were a number of people in there that took pictures of you when you were over there. I didn't know what you were doing until I saw the signs.
I'm gonna actually go. There's one of the ladies that removed me last time.
Okay. So I guess Justin's in the mood, so we're gonna just pay attention here for a little while and see what happens. He's over there recording too, I assume.
Like Tom still does. And even
Sorry, I might have phrased this. It is protected by
Turn your phone off next time, Lisa. One of our commissioners, the phone kept going off in the middle of that thing. All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here. Does she understand the First Amendment? No.
Not really.
Huh?
Not really. She said, these are opinions that you're allowed to have. I said, oh yeah, thank you there, comrade.
Okay, good.
I said, well, what about last year when I said my son said this is wrong and stop grooming children? Are those allowed? She's
Yeah.
like, she wouldn't answer that.
She wouldn't answer that one. No, they're still being sued, so she doesn't want to answer that one. All right, guys, that's the end of the stream. Appreciate you tuning in. Douglas County DA race. I'm going to recommend y'all vote for Dakota.